Surakarta City, widely known as Solo, is a city located in Central Java Province, Indonesia. From UKSW, a trip to Solo takes around 45 minutes to 1 hour at normal traffic. On this virtual tour, we are going to visit some of these museums to learn more about a little part of Indonesia culture together. So, for the first destination, we are going to visit Museum Danar Hadi, a museum that stores many collections of batik, one of the most famous culture of Indonesia. And let's go to our friends Hans and Sekar, who seems to be enjoying the place already.
Whoa, this place looks so fancy.
Yes, look at that. There's a cannon in there.
This is a real cannon. So what is this place actually?
This place is a museum and a store. The full name is Danar Hadi House of Batik.
Ah, so this is a museum.
Yeah, this is one of the famous and popular batik museum. And this is one of home of the batik company named PT Danar Hadi.
Oh, so there must be a lot of batik in here.
Yes, there is a lot of batik. Let's go, come on, to the museum.
Hello, good morning. Would you like to write down your name in a guest book first? One of you, it's okay actually.
Are you the tour guide in here?
Oh yeah, welcome to Danar Hadi Batik Museum. My name is Afif. I am the guide that will guiding you to have a tour inside this museum. And there are several things that we have to explain inside this museum. We have several rules and regulation. First of all, we are not allowed to, of course, take a picture because of the copyright and also intellectual property rights. So no phone, please, right? And then second one, we are not allowed to touch, of course, because all of this collection are very, very old collection, and most of them are 100 years old collection, so they are very fragile, so we are not allowed to touch. And the last rule is that we are not supposed to drink or eat during the tour. I think that's the regulation. And about this museum, this is Danar Hadi Batik Museum. The owner is Mr. Santoso Dullah, the late Mr. Santoso, and he is also the owner of Danar Hadi Batik. So this is our first room. This is what we call Batik Kraton room or Kraton rooms. In this room we have we divide it into two different segments. The first one is Solo, which is right in front of you. Here is the Kraton Kasunanan Batik, and right there we also have the Yogyakarta Batik. Let's move here first. Anyway, this is Kraton Surakarta Batik. As you can see here, we have so many characteristics. The first one is, of course, the brown color. This is also the characteristic of Solo Batik. And then the second characteristic, as we can see here, they also have symbolical pattern because of the strong Islamic influence. And then the last characteristic is, of course, the philosophy, which is very important, especially for you guys that visit Solo or Jogja, or especially for people that live in Solo and Jogja, because each of the Kraton Batik, they have philosophy, which means we are not supposed to wear it because we like it. So we have to at least know a little bit information about the philosophy itself. This is the Yogyakarta Batik. Now we can start to compare between Jogja and Solo. The first one and the most obvious one is the white color. As you can see here, the white color in Jogja, they appear to be much brighter than Solo. That's the first one. Look at Solo section. In Solo Batik, the white color is much more cream white or creamy white, or sometimes people call it ivory white, yellowish white. But in Jogja, once again, in Jogja, it appears to be much brighter white. That's the most obvious difference. And the second difference, if you look at the size of the pattern, the Yogyakarta Batik tend to be much bigger than in Solo. So they have bigger pattern, they show some masculinity. And in Solo, they have smaller pattern. Sometimes people call it intricate pattern or delicate pattern. So they have so many small patterns. They show a little bit more about feminism or something like that, femininity. But of course, the last difference is the most unique, and it is about the diagonal pattern. Because as we can see here, the diagonal pattern are very famous in batik, especially in Kraton batik. For example, look at this. This is also diagonal pattern. Look at that. In the mannequin is also diagonal pattern. In Solo and Jogja, they both have diagonal pattern, which is what we call as parang. Parang is the name of the pattern. About the difference between Solo and Jogja, if you wear parang with the Yogyakarta style, it always starts from the top left of your body. So this is the best example. So in the mannequin here, it starts from the top left of the body and then slanting to the down right. That's Yogyakarta style. Okay guys, this is the next room, which is the Chinese batik influence. And the Chinese batik is considered as the most decorated batik ever. So it is one of the hardest and the most difficult batik to make. Why it is the most difficult? Because most of the Chinese influenced batik, they put so many dots, they put so many delicate patterns into the batik itself. Let's see here. These are the example of the Chinese batik influence. They were made by the Indo-Chinese people, or we call it Peranakan, that live in the north coastal of Java, mostly in the city of Pekalongan and Cirebon, sometimes in Lasem. And they put so many intricate details, very small dots all along the pattern. Please enjoy the collection here. But one of the most interesting Chinese batik is during 1942. During the Japanese arrival in 1942, there was very limited amount of cotton, which is the basic material, and there was also limited amount of the workers. So they had to make batik as efficient as possible, and the result is become one of the most fascinating and one of the finest batik making in the history of batik. This is the Jawa Hokokai batik, which has strong Japanese influence. Because, for example, the first one is the flowers. The flowers, they take the flowers from the Kristen flowers, sometimes dahlia, anggrek, and of course sakura flowers, which was also represent the Japanese culture. Other than that, the color, also the mix between the Japanese favorite color like yellow, sometimes purple. And also one that we cannot forget is the Susomoyo pattern. Do you know Susomoyo?
I don't know.
Susomoyo is the edge pattern in kimono. So people only found Susomoyo in kimono, which is only Japanese recognized Susomoyo. And surprisingly, Susomoyo is also one pattern that is considered as the most important in Jawa Hokokai batik. It is something like this, the edge pattern. So right there we also have Susomoyo. So indeed, the Jawa Hokokai has a very strong Japanese influence, and it is one of the finest batik making in the history of batik in Indonesia. This is the next room, which is what we call as the Batik Indonesia room. Here is the mix between the North Coastal, as we know before. The North Coastal batik is much more colorful than the court batik. The traditional or the court batik is more about brown color. And here in the Indonesian batik, it was happening in around 1950s, after a few years after the independence. So there was an idea to mix between the North Coastal style and the Kraton style. Here we have the example of it. I think that is probably the best example. See, as you know before, this is what we call the parang pattern. Parang, or the diagonal pattern, considered as the traditional pattern, right? And it's supposed to be brown, just like the other Kraton batik. But something happened in the 1950s that they have to be mixed with the North Coastal style. But the idea is they put the North Coastal color into the traditional pattern. So we take the pattern from the kraton, but we put the North Coastal color into that pattern. That's why now we have the parang with the green, bright red, something like this nowadays. And the idea behind those things were from Mr. Sukarno himself. This is our first president of Indonesia, and he had an idea of combining those things.
Okay, so how did Sukarno express his idea of Batik Indonesia? Is it through his speech or through letter or a discussion with the artist?
We believe from the literature that we got, Mr. Sukarno had a conversation with Ibu Sud, Bintang Sudibyo, which was one of the greatest batik artists during that time, to how to combine between the North Coastal and the Kraton, because since then we had a tension. We had for example, the North Coastal people, they didn't really like the Kraton style, and the Kraton people, we didn't really like the North Coastal style. Mr. Sukarno had an idea to how to combine this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last room. So it's been a great time for me, and also it's been a pleasure to be able to guide you. And hopefully there are things to learn, there are knowledge to gain about batik, especially during our tour. And just like any other tourism destination, the exit door will be the shopping area, and I will open the door for you.
Okay, so we did learn a lot of great things. Now, if you guys also want to visit this museum is located in Slamet Riyadi Street, which is the most famous street in Solo, and you can find it real easily. Thank you, Mas.
Thank you very much. Happy shopping. Have a nice day. Stay healthy.
Now, we are here at Museum Keris Nusantara. Despite the name, this museum does not only store keris, but they also store any kinds of weapons from around Indonesia.
And then we curious about the weapon inside.
Of course!
Let's go to the museum.
Let's go!
Welcome to the museum.
Good.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for welcoming us. We are Sekar and Hans. Now, will you please take us through the collection?
Okay, of course. You can go to the admin of museum first. Okay, we are in the fourth floor, and we call Cipta Adiluhung. Okay, there is a diorama yeah, of Chris process. Okay, the one it is the Pesalen. Pesalen is the place for making Chris. This is the new Chris or Kamartikan. We call Kamartikan. Yes, when the Chris make and after 1945, we call it Kamartikan. But when the Chris make before 1945, we call Sepuh, Chris Sepuh. Yeah. This is the example how to wear a Chris in our culture. But this is especially for Solo. Like this. 1, 2, 3. Yes. When the Chris is like this, yeah, in the left. like this. This is for sad ceremony, like when the,
Like a funeral?
yeah, dead person maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, but when the Chris is like this on the right side, and the warangko, the pattern warangko is outside, is like this. This is for wedding party. This, and for when the Chris position is like this is for sending the message for to the kingdom or the kraton. Like this, yeah. And when the Chris is positioned like this in front of us, on the right side, and the jari chain with the black trouser, it is for war. Yeah, to go to war, like this. This is the activity that in the pesalen. The activity in the pesalen. This is upupan in Javanese. Upupan, wind, to alter the wind, to make up the wind. Angin. Angin, menciptakan angin untuk nanti create the wind for this prapen. This is called prapen.
To light up the fire.
Yeah, to create the fire using this arang kayu jati.
Like a coal.
Called charcoal, ya.
Charcoal.
Ya. Itu asli ini. It is can create the higher hold. Gimana ya? Panas paling tinggi. Higher degree.
The higher temperature.
Yeah, like this. And this is the material, the main material of plate: iron, steel, and the nickel. Yes,
So the nickel
of
is in the
course.
middle.
Yes.
Well, that was the journey, wasn't it? Unfortunately, we have to end our visit to Surakarta city here. We hope you enjoyed the trip and learned a lot more about Indonesian culture. We hope someday you will be able to visit these places in real life. Thanks for tuning in.